Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Friday, and of course, if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you know that Friday is FOMO Friday, and today is when we look through the stories of the week. We call out those you don't really need to know. You probably shouldn't even know in some cases, and we bring you the stories that you should know about, the things that might interest you, particularly from a Christian perspective. And we do that every Friday. And we know you're not listening to propaganda media, so you want to stay informed. We don't want you to have that fear of missing out. So this is what we do on Fridays. And from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this first one, and it's a little bit interesting in that an ideologically driven bank founded by a left-wing billionaire offers loans to illegal aliens as part of its efforts to fight centuries of systemic racism, as they put it, and using a little known financial tactic to profit off of Americans' mass immigration crisis. The Beneficial State Bank, a project of billionaire Democrat donor and former presidential candidate Tom Steyer. It utilizes individual taxpayer identification numbers to give loans to illegal aliens who would not otherwise be able to access lines of credit. And rather than characterizing it as a way to corner the lending market for illegal aliens who may otherwise struggle to access traditional financial tools, of course, the Oakland, California-based bank says that its loan offerings are part of a plan to combat systemic racism. Beneficial State Bank, this is a quote, Beneficial State Bank is committed to addressing financial inequities that disproportionately affect communities of color, a result of centuries of systemic racism. That's what the bank said in an announcement for its 2022 impact report. It also said that the bank aims to foster financial security and broaden access to fair, transparent financing for all its customers, including those in immigrant communities, unquote. Well, they also said that the key initiative is lending to immigrant customers who may not have Social Security numbers, but possess individual taxpayer identification numbers. In 2022 alone, Beneficial State Bank issued $25 million in auto loans to 707 ITIN borrowers. Those are that don't have a Social Security number, but have an identification number. The bank doubled down on its efforts to offer loans to illegal aliens the following year. Its 2023 impact report revealed this. Quote, because many financial institutions require Social Security numbers, people without them, such as recent immigrants to the United States, can face barriers to qualifying for the loan they need to purchase a car. This is what the report reads. It says the bank lends to customers with individual taxpayer identification numbers, providing critical access to credit and expanding financial inclusion. The bank noted that roughly 10% of the 16,000 active auto loans have been given to customers using this alternative documentation. The program is specifically intended to appeal to illegal immigrants, and a subsidiary of Beneficial State Bank first began lending to undocumented immigrants through furniture loans by partnering with furniture stores. And this is what the Global Alliance for Banking on Values wrote. Beneficial State Bank also offers loans to people with California AB 60 driver's licenses. That's a specific type of license that can be obtained by individuals who are unable to provide proof of legal residence in the United States. The bank says that this loan offering allows people without a Social Security number to access credit. So, again, you don't have a driver's license? You don't have a Social Security card? No problem. We'll give you a car. We'll give you a license. Come on down. Well, Beneficial State Bank did not respond to requests for comment, of course. Yeah. But the bank is not the only financial institution that caters to illegal aliens by giving out these type of loans. Prisma Lending, a mortgage lending company that operates in 7 different states, has actively courted illegal alien customers and has dispersed over $1 billion in loans. The company hosted a talk with an immigration lawyer and created a guide for illegal aliens to encounter federal law enforcement, telling them what to do and telling customers how to trigger a credible fear interview to avoid deportation, and explaining that the interview process can slow deportation proceedings, giving you time to build a legal defense. Yeah. Well, the ITIN loan scheme also fueled the growth of Colony Ridge. That's the Texas development that was exposed as a hotbed for thousands of illegal aliens, including drug runners, cartel members, and suspected murderers. Leaked emails from the former head of a lobbying organization for Texas land developers indicated that there is an entire lending industry catering to illegal aliens. The developer admitted in an email to his colleagues, which was obtained by the Daily Wire, that we will not be able to sell our developments if each of our buyers have to have Social Security numbers. So yeah, this is just kind of an underground banking. I don't know how underground it is. I mean, they're pretty much right out there in your face with it, but it's definitely something that should not be happening. Illegal aliens are here illegally. I mean, that's the word, right? Illegal. They're not supposed to be here. They are breaking the law, and yet, our government has, to this point, given them all kinds of grace and all kinds of things, such as free money, free healthcare. Now they're getting loans, both car loans, furniture loans, mortgages. I mean, it's almost like it's better if you're a illegal alien than if you're a regular American citizen. But there is good news out there, and that is that the Trump administration on Tuesday ended another Biden-era abortion mandate. Yeah, specifically rescinding the most recent interpretation of what's known as the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act, or EMTALA. Now, under Biden, the EMTALA guidance forced hospitals and pro-life healthcare workers to provide abortions if it's deemed necessary stabilizing treatment. Critics describe the guidance as unlawful and a rejection of conscience protections. Quote, the Department of Health and Human Services and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, are rescinding July 2022 guidance from CMS with the subject reinforcement of EMTALA obligations specific to patients who are pregnant or are experiencing pregnancy loss. And this is what a press release from the CMS said, adding that such guidance no longer reflects the policy of this administration. Quote, CMS will continue to enforce EMTALA, which protects all individuals who present to a hospital emergency department seeking examination or treatment, including for identified emergency medical conditions that place the health of a pregnant woman or her unborn child in serious jeopardy. That's what the statement said. And it added that CMS will work to rectify any perceived legal confusion and instability created by the former administration's actions. Now, pro-lifers were quick to celebrate, of course, the move from HHS. Roger Servino of the Heritage Foundation, for example, posted this. He said, President Trump promised to dismantle the abortion radicalism left by his predecessor, and today another abortion mandate bites the dust. That's kind of nice, right? Quote, wide majorities of Americans oppose forcing doctors and hospitals to take innocent human life, and this change goes back to respecting conscience and the rule of law. And he continued by saying the EMTALA requires hospitals to treat unborn children and mothers in labor, yet shamelessly abortion radicals inverted this clearly pro-life law to unlawfully mandate abortion nationwide, even though every state already has life of the mother exemptions. Quote, to add insult to injury, the Biden order refuses to acknowledge that the law protected mothers or even women, instead calling them pregnant patients. This is what Servino said. He said that a stain on Americans' conscience is now gone, and good riddance. Well, days after taking office in his second term, Trump signed 2 orders to further prevent taxpayers from funding abortions, as previously highlighted, even here on the podcast. And so he's just continuing down this pro-life road, and that is a very, very good thing. What isn't a very good thing is what is now coming out from Kash Patel. A Chinese scholar at the University of Michigan was arrested by the FBI and charged with attempting to smuggle a biological pathogen into the United States that could be used for agricultural terrorism, according to documents unsealed by a federal court on Tuesday. Prosecutors said that Michigan scholar Youngwing Zhong, along with her boyfriend, Zhongyong Liu, tried to smuggle a biological pathogen into the United States last July. The Detroit News reported this, and they said that the pathogen, called Fusarium graminearum, causes head blight, as it's called. It's a disease that can wipe out wheat and barley and maize and rice crops, and is responsible for billions of dollars of economic loss worldwide each year. And according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Michigan, the pathogen can also cause vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive defects in humans and livestock. The U.S. Attorney Jerome F. Gordon Jr. accused the suspects, who include a loyal member of the Chinese Communist Party, of pursuing a scheme of the gravest national security concerns. Quote, these 2 aliens have been charged with smuggling a fungus that has been described as a potential agri-terrorism weapon into the heartland of America, where they apparently intend to use a University of Michigan laboratory to further their scheme. The FBI Director Kash Patel said the arrest of Zhong and Liu is a sobering reminder that the CCP is working around the clock to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate American institutions and target our food supply, which would have grave consequences, of course, putting American lives and our economy in serious risk. Now, Zhong's boyfriend was caught with the pathogen by Customs and Border Protection officers at the Detroit Metropolitan Airport. And quote, when Customs and Border Protection officers questioned Liu, he made false statements to CBP officers about the purpose of his visit to the United States and his knowledge of the existence of the biological pathogen in his possession. An FBI special agent wrote in the criminal filing all about this, and the agent said that, quote, ultimately, Liu admitted to smuggling the pathogen and stated that he brought the pathogen into the United States so that he could conduct research on it at a laboratory at the University of Michigan, where his girlfriend Zheng worked, and so that's where he was headed with it, and the two were going to work on it there. Now, after receiving a doctorate in plant pathogens from China's Zhejiang University, Zhang was given money through the Chinese Foundation funded by the Communist government to conduct postdoctoral research on Fusium granaceum, which is that dangerous fungus, and Zhang will make her first court appearance on here coming up. Looks like maybe even today. Both of them are charged with conspiracy in smuggling goods into the United States, false statements, and visa fraud. Well, Zhang's case marks the second criminal complaint unsealed in the past week involving a Chinese citizen at the University of Michigan. Last Friday, prosecutors unsealed a criminal case against a Chinese student who illegally voted in the 2024 election. And the Chinese national, who was in the United States legally, successfully obtained a ballot and cast his vote at an early voting location last October. Must be a Democrat. The Chinese student recently fled the country and went back to China, according to the criminal complaint. And last week, the Trump administration said that that is moving to aggressively revoke Chinese student visas, adding that the United States will no longer tolerate the Chinese Communist Party's exploitation of U.S. universities or theft of U.S. research intellectual property or technologies to grow its military power, conduct intelligence collections, or repress voices of opposition. So Trump, again, him and his administration working overtime, it seems like, to thwart efforts the Chinese Communist Party is trying to do to infiltrate a number of areas and institutions within the United States. Well, the Supreme Court came down with a few decisions, and actually, it's good news. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of a Ohio woman who claimed to be the victim of so-called reverse discrimination on Thursday, making it easier for people across the country who are members of the majority group to sue for discrimination. Of course, you know that there's many that say that white people cannot be discriminated against, that anybody other than white people cannot be racist, because whites are the majority. And so, that being said, there's nothing that you can do to white people that's racist. Well, of course, I mean, that just defies logic at every level. But the unanimous decision puts an end to a standard used in 20 states and the District of Columbia that imposed a higher burden of proof on white and male and straight individuals who claimed to be the victims of discrimination on the basis of those identities. The standard was applied in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which includes Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Michigan, as well as other as in other federal courts. But the ruling was a win for Marlene Ames. Marlene Ames is a 20-year-old veteran who the Ohio Department of Youth Services said that she was denied a promotion and then demoted for being straight, while both the person who received the promotion and took her old job identified as LGBT, of course. Well, Ames said that she didn't know she'd be held to a different standard in her attempt to prove her discrimination claim, while her lawyer argued that the application of different standards on the basis of democratic characteristics was a violation of the Civil Rights Act, of course. And yeah, of course it is. Quote, little did I know at the time that I filed that my burden was going to be harsher than somebody else's burden to prove my case. Yeah, because of the color of her skin, she had a higher burden to prove. Quote, I want people to try to understand that we're trying to make this a level playing field for everyone, not just a white woman in Ohio. Well, the case comes against the backdrop of the national fight over the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda, which corporations and educational institutions adopted, of course, en masse in 2020 and the following years. And many of these DEI policies have resulted in discrimination and targeting whites and males and even Asian applicants. IBM sponsored 2 paid internships, including one that discriminated against whites and Asians, and another that discriminated against men unless those men identified as women, of course. NASCAR banned white applicants from its diversity internship, only removing the race-based selection criteria after the Daily Wire investigation took place on that. And a music ensemble that has received federal funding discriminated against whites in its BIPOC internship, citing its commitment to systemic allyship. Man, there's a woke mouthful for you, right? Even the Biden administration, their Department of Defense created a discriminatory job pipeline that offered preferable treatment to women and non-white students seeking employment in the Pentagon. The program had to be amended in the wake of the Supreme Court's ruling against affirmative action, at least. And of course, President Donald Trump has signed a slate of executive orders targeting the DEI agenda in education, the federal governments as well, and while the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has sought to end the discriminatory practices in the private sector. So again, some really good stuff happening there, and yet even the Supreme Court has come down with another ruling that we would file in the column of good news. The Supreme Court unanimously ruled in favor of a Catholic charity that sued Wisconsin after it was mandated to pay certain unemployment taxes while other religious organizations were exempt. In its ruling, the court struck down a decision from the Wisconsin Supreme Court that said the Catholic Charities Bureau had to pay taxes on unemployment compensation. The court said that the interpretation of the state tax law by Wisconsin Supreme Court violated the First Amendment. Quote, the First Amendment mandates government neutrality between religious and subjects any state sponsored denominational preference to strict scrutiny. This is what Justice Sotomayor wrote in a majority decision. The Wisconsin Supreme Court's application of Wisconsin law imposed a denominational preference by differentiating between religious-based and theological lines. So literally trying to split hairs in order to collect money. Catholic Charity Bureau is an organization that provides services for poor people, the disabled, the elderly, and children with special needs as a ministry of the Catholic Church in the Diocese of Superior. According to its website, anyway, it provides around 50 programs to over 10,000 people. Justice Clarence Thomas wrote a concurring opinion, and he even went farther. He's saying that in addition to violating the First Amendment, the Wisconsin Supreme Court violated the church autonomy doctrine, which means that a religious institution is not defined by any corporate entity that it may form. Quote, I would reverse for an additional reason that the Wisconsin Supreme Court violated the church autonomy doctrine. However, incorporated Catholic charities and its subsidies are, for a religious perspective, a mere arm of the Diocese of Superior. The Wisconsin Supreme Court would have deferred to that understanding, and its failure to do so amounted to an unlawful attempt by the state to redefine the diocese's internal governance. That's what he had to say. Thomas is great. He noted that the government would not use entities created by religious institutions as a backdoor means to regulate their internal governance. Quote, in short, the corporation is made for the church, not the church for the corporation. So both the basic principles of church autonomy and the history of religious corporations establish that religious institutions are more than the corporation entities that they form. And he wrote that it follows that the government may not use such entities as a means to regulate the internal governance of religious institutions. And in a little bit of a surprising twist here, the Kenji Brown Jackson, Justice Jackson, also issued a separate concurring opinion. So yeah, this one went down in flames for them. And lastly, the SCOTUS also tossed out a Mexico lawsuit against U.S. gun manufacturers. The Supreme Court on Thursday tossed out a lawsuit by the Mexican government against United States gun manufacturers. The unanimous court decision found that Mexico did not prove a link between the gun manufacturers and cartel violence in Mexico. See, Justice Kagan wrote the 9-0 opinion, again, a unanimous opinion, in the case known as Smith & Wesson Brands, Inc. Versus Estrados Undos Mexicanos. This is the quote. Mexico alleges that the companies aided and abetted unlawful sales routing guns to Mexican drug cartels. The question represented is whether Mexico's complaint plausibly pleads that conduct. We conclude it does not, Kagan wrote. Lawyers for the Mexican government argued that the gun makers in the United States sold firearms to rogue dealers who in turn sold guns illegally to Mexican drug traffickers to eventually end up in the possession of cartels, and the cartels have used those firearms to do damage to the Mexican government. So this was definitely something that was, they weren't going to be able to prove anything here. It's not what's happening. Gun manufacturers are not selling directly or indirectly even to the cartels, drug cartels, in order to overthrow the Mexican government or something. That's just crazy. Well, I wanted to end here on kind of a interesting note. The former White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, you remember her, right? She was probably, I would say, the worst press secretary I have ever seen in my lifetime. And well, she has left the Democratic Party after working for 2 Democratic presidents and a career of towing the party line, most notably while also defending former President Joe Biden amid his obvious cognitive decline. News about Jean-Pierre's party affiliation broke with the listing of her new memoir. Yes, she's trying to cash in on her position. It's a book. It's a memoir that she's coming out with called Independent. I mean, that in itself is funny. But Independent, a look inside a broken White House outside the party lines. That's what she's saying. The Barnes & Noble description of the book reveals that Jean-Pierre has become an independent now. Quote, in a country obsessed with blind loyalty to a 2-party democratic system, Karine Jean-Pierre, former White House press secretary to the Biden-Harris administration, shares why Americans must step beyond party lines to embrace life as independents. That's what the description begins with. Also continues by saying that Jean-Pierre didn't come to her decision to be an independent lightly. She has served 2 American presidents, Obama and Biden. And in the book, Jean-Pierre urges Americans to think outside the blue and red box as we consider what's next to save our democracy, as the description says. Well, of course, the former president promoted Jean-Pierre into press secretary role in May of 2022. And from then until the end of his term, Jean-Pierre served as Biden's foremost apologist and defender. And so here you have somebody who was definitely part of the problem. I mean, she was part of what broke that White House, and she was lying through her teeth. She was part of the, nothing's wrong with Biden routine and all this kind of stuff. And now she's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to cash in on that, and I'm going to write a book, and, guess what? I'm not part of the Democratic Party anymore. So anyway, it's just the irony of it all is just absolutely delicious. But I would love to hear what you had to say on it. And, of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. You can always do that as well on YouTube. We are now on YouTube, and you can catch us there. Would love to have you subscribe. Would love to have you share. Would love to have you like our podcast there. And thank you for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.